Thank you very much, Sal, and thanks to everybody, not only for showing up, but as I look at the names and faces on the screen, so many of you have contributed your time, your talent, and sometimes your treasure to this campaign and to my prior campaign. So first and foremost, to virtually everybody I see here on the screen, thank you for all the ways that you've been involved already in my five successful campaigns for county commissioner and some of you even all the way back to when I ran for council here in Wayne back in 2008, which seems like a really, really long time ago, because so much has happened. Mikey Sherrill was elected to represent us in Congress, and she did that wonderfully for 7 years. And now she's been elected our governor, and I see tremendous promise in her governorship. I think it's going to move New Jersey in some great new directions. But now it falls to the voters of the 11th congressional district to select her successor at a time when, metaphorically and some days literally, Washington, D.C. is on fire, when all the norms and all the bipartisan relationships and notions of statesmanship and human behavior that used to protect our democracy are crumbling under the weight and the ambition of the second Trump administration. Donald Trump is all about self-service, enriching him and his cronies while the rest of us struggle to get by. I'm all about public service and I'm ready for the fight ahead because I've been fighting it all along. And I'm sure, by the way, for those of you who have attended others of these or other candidate forums, you're used to hearing the word fighter. You're used to hearing the promise, I'm going to go to Washington and I'm going to fight Donald Trump and I'm going to fight for you. And I just want to give you a frame to think about that in. Anyone can say they're a fighter, but there's promises and there's proof. So when somebody tells you a fighter, I would encourage you to look at their record of results. I'm the candidate in this contest who has taken on Donald Trump in the US Supreme Court and won when he tried to weaponize the 2020 census against immigrant communities, who stood up to Chris Christie and won when he tried to defund safety improvements to Route 46 and 3 near Montclair State University, and when he tried to defund senior services that my constituents needed right here in Wayne and Passaic County. I want to pause for a minute on 46 and 3 because many of you probably drive through that stretch of roadway from time to time, if not every day on your morning commute. You remember how bad it was. It was literally one of the 10 most dangerous highway interchanges in the state of New Jersey. And when I came on what was then the Board of Chosen Freeholders more than a dozen years ago, there was a plan in place to make it safer, and there was even federal funding in place. And the first time I went out to a meeting of a board that I'll describe a couple of times as the acronym NJTPA, Governor Christie's representative said that he wanted to take that funding away and spend it elsewhere on other priorities. And I said, you can't do that. This is too important to the safety of my constituents. It's too important to the safety of the students and faculty at Montclair State. And we need to keep this funding in place and keep this project on track. It had already been delayed 6 times. We were looking at the possibility of a seventh delay. I stood up, I leaned in, and I saw to it that that federal funding stayed in place. So you all were miserable for a couple of years with that construction, but the end game now is a much safer and faster commute and safer routes in and out of the Montclair State campus for students. As a voting rights lawyer, I've gone toe to toe with the GOP and federal court to fight racially targeted voter suppression and protect everyone's right to vote. And I won again there. That's part of a career as a practicing lawyer where I've protected voting rights and trained hundreds of other lawyers to do the same. And I want to propose to you as well. We talked a minute ago about promises and proof, but here's something else important I want you to think about. I believe we have only one chance to make sure the presidential election of 2028 is free and fair. And if we want to do that, then sending a voting rights lawyer to Congress now from the 11th district is an amazing opportunity to protect American democracy for the next generation. As Sal mentioned, I'm in my fifth term now on the Board of County Commissioners. And as a county commissioner, I focused for more than a decade on affordability for the more than 500,000 residents of our county, bringing in over $960 million in new federal infrastructure funding for the 11th district, 600 million of it here in Passaic County to make your commutes faster and your community safer. And that's everything from 46 and 3 that I talked about to projects like improving pedestrian safety for students at Wayne Hills, the improvements to Ratzer Road and elsewhere that have brought down serious accidents here in Wayne by 60% or more, and a whole host of other things. At the same time, I have lowered the Passaic County property tax rate every year for the last 9 years, while still making all those infrastructure investments, while still investing in new parks and public schools, supporting small businesses, achieving the county's highest credit rating in history, and protecting our public health system and our public health workers from RFK Jr.'s cuts. And that's just a few examples. I want to, as you can tell, I'm a policy nerd. I could talk about this stuff forever, but I actually want to take a step back and let you know a little bit about who I am. Um, I'm the son of a country doctor. I grew up riding in my dad's pickup truck on house calls out in the country. Dad was from Montclair, but we ended up in Pennsylvania. And in the back of my dad's pickup truck, he had two things side by side. He had his old black doctor's bag that he took for his house calls, and he had a chainsaw. And I knew on those country roads, sometimes at night, sometimes on the weekend, that meant nothing was going to stand between him and the patients and the families who needed him. And I'll give you another example of how my father was a someone who lived a life of service and taught me the idea that service is both a calling and can be a wonderful profession. Some of you are old enough to remember 1979, the 3 Mile Island nuclear accident. Just to give you a sense of how close that was for us, where I grew up, when the leaves were off the trees in the wintertime, I could see the 3 Mile Island cooling towers through my bedroom window. So when that nuclear accident happened, they evacuated. Well, first of all, as you may know, being here and having watched it on the news, loads of people evacuated Pennsylvania entirely, but they evacuated a whole lot of young families and pregnant women to the fallout shelter underneath the Hershey Arena. And I went there with my father because he went there to make sure that his patients knew that he was there for them, to provide comfort and answers for the families that had tough questions about what everything was going on might mean for them and their health. And again, so the idea of going towards difficulty and towards danger to serve people is something that has been part of my life from the very beginning. After that upbringing, I went on to Brown University and Harvard Law School. In between, I spent a year as a Raoul Wallenberg Scholar at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. And Israel is where I met my wife, who many of you know. And I imagine if I asked all of you, where in the world would a nice Christian boy go to meet a beautiful Hindu woman? Israel would not be on your list. But that is our story. And however unlikely it has made me part of an interfaith, an interracial family. My wife is a naturalized citizen, and so are most of her family. So when we had Trump coming in, first back in 2017 with all the anti-immigrant rhetoric, but particularly in 2025 when he started talking about denaturalizing people, Kathy was making a trip to India, and I told her, take your original naturalization certificate with you, just in case they give you trouble trying to get back into the US. Folks, it is outrageous and appalling that we should have had that concern. And the fact that people across the country are being put through that kind of worry with these ICE raids, including one that we saw just this weekend out in Morristown, is absolutely outrageous. I take this attack on citizenship and residency as personal to me because of those experiences and because I regard myself as part of an immigrant community. And I could go on about that, but let me just tell you, Trump's saying one thing, which is that he's getting rid of criminal aliens, but where's he going in Morristown? The laundromat. That's not where you're finding the folks that he claims to be rounding up. On the contrary, you're creating terror in immigrant communities in ways that are really deeply destructive. And I say that representing a county where 1/3 of my constituents are immigrants. I've been elected and reelected 5 times as a county commissioner because I deliver for those constituents. I've won tough races, both primaries and generals. I've worked closely with our congressional delegation, so I understand how that money comes from Washington and affects all of us, and how to be efficient and effective in going to get it. I also have seen, because we run facilities like Preakness Healthcare Center, that we need to get serious about the cost of healthcare in this country. We're right at the very beginning of a time period. Some of you probably know that the open enrollment period ends Thursday for the Affordable Care Act exchanges. In New Jersey this year, I should say in Passaic County this year, the average family on the exchanges is paying $1,273 more every month because of the big beautiful bill. And the cuts to Medicaid are going to be devastating to the facilities that all of us use because, all of us, I guess, are accustomed to thinking in terms of our own coverage. What's my copay? Can I go to this doctor? And so forth. But when you run a facility like Preakness Healthcare Center, you recognize that keeping a place like that open and functioning is a product of all of that put together, Medicare and Medicaid and private insurance and so forth. And you pull one piece of that out, and it's like that game Jenga. The tower can fall. We need all of those pieces of our healthcare economy to make sure that quality of care and good staff to patient ratios and quality of the facility are there. So going to Washington and fighting back against the big beautiful bill cuts on medical costs is absolutely a top priority for me. But we need to go further. We need to have a public option for healthcare so that we can use the free market to bend that cost curve in the right direction, to bring costs under control, and to put private insurers in the place where, because they're competing that way, they're now competing to provide service, not deny it. That's going to be the way to move the healthcare economy in the right direction in terms of cost. And I believe that's one of the very first things I want to accomplish when I get there, along with, as I said, that priority of making sure that the elections of 2026 and 2028 are free and fair. And the reason I mentioned 2026 there is that this is a special election right now to complete Mikey Sherrill's current term. That means that the primary is on the 5th of February. The special general election is on April 16th. And immediately after I'm elected in the general election on April 16th, I will be able to take office. So this is the first congressional contest of 2026. The eyes of the nation are going to be upon us. We're going to have the chance to set the priorities and the tone and stand up for our democratic values in a way that's going to shape the rest of the year. It also puts me there and able to work on these issues before the remainder of folks who will come along and I believe give us a majority in the House of Representatives after the November of 2026 elections. And as you know, there are more than a dozen candidates on the ballot. There are 11 of us still actively campaigning. I hope I've earned your vote, or I'm about to earn your vote over the course of our dialogue this hour. But I want to encourage you to look among the group of candidates before you who has that record of results, who has the experience on the key issues that affect the well-being of people in this district and people right here in our town of Wayne, and who can be an example of the integrity and honesty that we should be able to expect out of government, to be an example of public service, not self-service. One of the other things I'll do when I get there is fight for a ban on congressional stock trading. Because if we want to present a contrast to Trump, we have to do it with honesty and not with grift. And I'm going to restore the guardrails that Trump has broken. For North Jersey, I'm going to make sure that the bipartisan infrastructure law, which comes to an end this year, is replaced by something that allows us to finish the Gateway Tunnel and continue doing all of the stuff that we've done to invest here in Passaic County, in Wayne, and across the 11th district here in our region. So with that, just want to remind you, as Sal did first, you can already vote. If you've got to vote by mail ballot, mark my name and send it back. You can vote early starting January 29th at the library, and election day is Thursday, the 5th of February. So I ask for your vote and your support. I know a number of you have already been involved in the campaign, but if you'd like to get involved, please reach out to me personally. We'll get you tied into a wonderful campaign in Wayne and Passaic County and beyond. So thank you very much for the opportunity to make an opening statement, and I look forward to your